So welcome everybody to another episode of a BITA Business Podcast. Today I'm here with Breda McCague from Aiming for Awesome, and we're going to talk about all things mindset, business and BITA. So great to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here.
So we just thought it'd be great to have you on. I know we met briefly down at Aviva in the stadium for the Real Link conference, and we got chatting. I know you're a big part of BITA now as well, so we thought get you on and just learn a little bit about yourself, about your background and kind of where things are at for you at the minute.
Super. Well, it's a nice opportunity to do that. So happy to see the BITA podcast hitting plenty of plays. We want plenty of that going on. So if you're listening, share this.
As a well-known TEDx speaker, kind of global motivational speaker, tell us a little bit about where that came from and how you got into that line of business.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody ends up in motivation as speaking, on purpose. I think it's usually people with a life journey and interesting experiences who want to share that sort of stuff with people. And my background is a bit odd, all right, in that I joined the Reserve Defence Forces in Monaghan when I was 17 because it was the first time girls were allowed in. And sure, I got curious to see why would they not let the likes of me in there? So off I went and found I loved it and stayed in it for 20 years and became my unit's first female lieutenant. Right, so I did that for 20 years and that taught me a lot about leading, right? That taught me a lot about collaborating, motivating people. And as you can probably guess, that's why I like BITA, because it's very collaborative. And it's all about people empowering each other and supporting each other and trading together. And I love that stuff. So that was the army piece. And then I joined banking. So I was in global finance, transforming banks all over the world. And so that was a lot of tech, IT, working with amazing teams all over the world. And there I learned a lot about people as well, and communicating and supporting each other and pulling together and stakeholders and how to handle people and how to understand people. And again, I found that in BITA. So for the 22 years that I was in the army and in the banking, I was in banking suits during the day, running all of these programs all over the world. And then at night I'd be in the army boots. And so I got very different insights to two very different worlds, Chris. And that is what sort of got me hooked on human behaviour and the power of leadership, which is when I seen BITA and I started to learn about BITA and what they're doing, I was like, oh my God, yes. So I love collaborating and I love businesses working together. That's the way to go. And I want us to all have more fun in the world because life is too short. And if we can do that via our businesses and contracting and trading with each other, well, why would we not do that? That makes sense to me.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, and how those early years shaped how you show up today now.
Yeah, great question. So I am from Monaghan, still living in Monaghan, but a different part of Monaghan. My dad probably a massive influence in my life because he was a very unusual thinker. He assessed everything very different and his thought patterns were always fascinating to me. So I'd say that's kind of where I come from in terms of the way I think about the world, the way I see things, the way I spot opportunities and the way I bring people together. Played music when I was very young. I was playing music from I was 6 years of age in competitions. I was in the All-Ireland FLA. Would you believe I actually played in the drumming All-Ireland FLA when I was 12. I was a drummer. And I played the piano accordion and I played in all of these bands. We had like different bands to play in and trios and duets, all sorts of stuff. So basically competition is good for you when you're a kid, is what people need to be thinking about, right? And if you've got kids and you're listening to this, well then get them into competitions because it teaches you how to get out of your comfort zone and how to become the best version of whatever it is you want to do. So I think that's very important. For all of us in BITA as well, I want us to stay on that competitive edge all of the time in our industries. And I want us innovating and I want us doing things that people are not doing anywhere else. I want us to do that unique stuff together. So that's what I want. So that's kind of where my background is influencing my current future and my present at this point in time. I'd say it's that kind of bringing people together, working together, being competitive and trying to do things in a unique way. I like innovation a lot. So I'd love to see us doing more of that even across the patch in BITA, and I've plans for us there.
And did you grow up in like a town or in the countryside?
Countryside, farmer's daughter. So I've done everything from driving tractors to injecting cattle. I have done it all. And I think that's why I like the army so much, because I got to do things that 17-year-old girls were not doing, like firing grenades and, you know, working mortars and stripping weapons blindfolded. I think that was not what most girls of my age were doing in Monaghan. And I think that really opened the world up to me. Do you know that? Because I got to use my brain in a different way. There were coaches around me, mentors, and they were fabulous. They inspired my entire life. They still are my best friends. Those men that trained me back then are still my best friends. So I find, again, a lot of similarities there. When I joined BITA, I was like, this reminds me of the camaraderie I had back in the army days, when people took you under their wing and they coached you and they minded you and they helped you grow and they helped you progress. That's what I see BITA doing. This is what we're doing with each other. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Pure magic.
And take us back to those days then. Did you have a big family working on the farm? You know, did you have any brothers or sisters? Tell us a little bit about family life.
Yeah. So my mum was originally Monaghan as well. My dad was too. He was a big musician. So he taught me how to play piano accordion. I had a godmother who was his sister, who would be very influential in my life as well, because I was with her at a young age, spent a lot of time with her. And what I've learned in terms of the talks I do and what I'm teaching people is that we are heavily influenced by what we learn in the younger years. So up to the age of 7 is where you're getting programmed. So your subconscious mind and how you see the world is being programmed at that young age. So anybody listening now, think about who was around you when you were that young, because you've absorbed a lot of their thinking. Now, if you were lucky enough to be around people who thought big, were creative thinkers, were quite bold and quite good, you know, dealing with challenges, finding solutions, then lucky you. But if you weren't, it doesn't mean that you can't learn that stuff. That stuff can be learned, because that's what I'm teaching a lot of people now. Mm-hmm. So,
and tell us, what do you think you picked up in those first 7 years of your life then from your immediate family? Tell us about some of those things.
Yeah, definitely my dad's perspective is what I would have been blown away by. I used to sit watching him watch the 9 o'clock news so I could hear him narrate. Yeah, because he'd be narrating over it in a totally different angle to anyone else. And I used to think this was phenomenal. So I missed the bus every morning going to school because I went to bed late every night so I could sit up listening to him. So my mother would be probably very extroverted. She's very bubbly. She's the type of person that lifts a room. So she'll inject energy everywhere she goes. And I think I've got that side of the spectrum from her. And then, as I say, my godmother would instill a lot of confidence in me. Really, the stuff about believing in yourself and all of that kind of stuff, that was very powerful from my godmother, who had great belief in, you know, her pride in where she'd come from, her journey. And I think that's what I picked up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been quite open about your personal transformation.
Yeah.
Take us back to that moment when you realised that you needed to change.
So I would say for me, my life at the time wasn't going as well as it should have been. So my career was going brilliantly, but stuff in my personal life was not. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not the way this story ends, which is a very powerful, probably catalyst for transformation for a lot of people. And so when you're thinking like that, you need to figure out how you go about changing things. And the good news is that we are not trees and we can move and we can change things. But you got to learn the power of your choice. And that means you've got to figure out what it is you're saying yes to and not changing, therefore, and what it is you would love to have. So I love getting people into a space where they actually start thinking different, because I know a lot about our thought patterns now. And so that at that point, I didn't realize how much work I would have to do. But that is where I started studying the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, all of the thought leaders around the world. I started listening and downloading all of that stuff. And I researched and studied and practiced all of that on myself for about 7 years.
And can you tell us about some of the aspects or some of the parts of your life that you weren't happy about at the time?
Well, it was mostly personal stuff, and it was very tricky stuff to change. But I just had to figure out how to get help. I had to get inspiration from other people who had done it, and I had to manage to get out of the environment I was in. So to do that, you've got to figure out how you make decisions, how you understand other people's behaviours and your own. And also, a massive part is your vision. So people don't have enough vision in my mind, right? So now that I know the power of vision, I would love everybody listening to this to think about the vision they have for their company and for themselves, right? Because life is too short and you're going to leave a legacy of some kind whether you mean to or not, is the bit that we have choice over. So anyone listening to this, I want you thinking about the legacies that you want to leave. I want you thinking about the type of business you want to be running. I want you thinking about the impact you want to have on people. Because at some point in our lives, we're not going to be able to do it anymore. And I don't want anyone to have regrets. So people need to start living to the max. And to do that, you need a clear vision ahead. You need people around you that understand your vision and that they can get on the same page with you. I do a lot of that with companies. Trying to get teams onto the same page is a massive job. And there's work you can do in that space around communication, around helping people to be vulnerable on senior teams, helping people to share their visions, their ideas, and allowing and enabling conflict around those conversations is very important. Not everybody should agree. If you have people around you at your top table that don't agree with you, they're valuable because they're thinking with a different perspective to you. And that stuff is very valuable.
What role has vulnerability played in your own growth journey?
Massive. It's a word I didn't know much about many, many years ago. And what I've learned is when you can get over your ego of having a persona or pretending to be what you think people want you to be, and you can just go back to being vulnerable and learn how to be your authentic self, you turn into a magnet for people and success. And so in this world, I think people read energy off each other. And when you find people who are not working to ego, who are literally they are vulnerable and they're being their authentic selves, you'll want to work with them. And that's definitely what I find in BITA. I find some absolute geniuses. And they are not working to personas. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're really lovely and their values are really important to me. I find people in BITA that have really strong values and I love that.
Was there ever a point where you thought, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can change?
No. You're not supposed to doubt in yourself, Chris.
Yeah, so you never had any of those?
No, I'm only joking. Of course I did. So what I've learned is humans, we have the fear of the unknown. So we don't know how to do these things. We've not done them before. So, my years of transforming companies has taught me that people get nervous when things have to change. Now, that could be, your board table. It could be relationships dynamics in your business. It could be your industry needs you to change. It could be you need to change as a leader and as an inspirer and an influencer with your people in business. People resist change massively. And when I realized that when I was delivering transformation projects, I went back to see, why do people hate change so much? It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of failure. We don't know what we're doing. We don't like being out of our comfort zone, so we retreat. So everybody does that, including me, when I started sort of dabbling in the world of transforming people and businesses and tables and, board decision making and all that nerdy stuff that I'm into. And so like everything else, you have to dip your toe in. You have to sort of try baby steps is what I do with people who are, at the very early part of their journey. Just try little bits here and there. And then sooner or later, you start to realize those little bits are starting to get more comfortable for you. Then you take another step. And that is how I get people from, a place where they're not happy into brilliance. It's a bit of a journey you go on. You learn as you go. You step through it bit by bit. You learn, you add to the bits that you've tried. You get confident and less nervous about them and you try more things. That's the way it rolls. And see, if you do that loads, you actually get to like it. And what has happened to me is I've become a total transformation advocate. I'm trying to get every person I meet to try a little bit different, and then businesses as well. Because I just don't want people sitting still. I don't want us sitting in any comfort zones because you're not learning, you're not at your best, and you're not living life to the max.
Tell us when this was then, Breda, that this transformation happened for you, and how did you get through those difficult moments of maybe self-doubt and that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, I've learned that when I am out helping others to believe in themselves, it helps me too. So what I've learned is that when I'm expressing myself on a video somewhere or one of my Breda's Bite Sizes on LinkedIn, sometimes that's more about me than it is about yous. But I mean, if I'm trying to help me, I should help you too. So why not put that up in social media and see can someone else pick up a lesson from that? So I just think the only way to overcome that sticky period where you're not sure where you're going, you don't know how to get there, you're a wee bit nervous about change, is to try things. Action makes all the difference there. People sit too much thinking, from my liking, right? We all sit in our heads and we go, imagine if I did this, and imagine if I was able to do that. And then we retreat. So fear comes in and just puts us back. And that is where we need to be brave. And brave is something we were all born with. Most people have long forgotten what that is. But I'm telling you now, you look at all of the most impressive, most influential leaders that are having the biggest impact in this world in a good way, they are brave. They do not care what people think about them. They do not think about what will happen if I don't get this right. They keep going. And so consistency and grit is massive. We need that for business owners. We need to get them into a place where they know anything they're going to try, it'll work. And you won't get it right all the time. That's okay. People say to me, what about failure? So in the innovation world, which I am also obsessed with, so I run a lot of hackathons for businesses. So I would take a lot of the construction industry in particular off late, but I do that with banks and all the white collar industries. And I will run hackathons, which means I'll bring people together. I'll put them out of their comfort zone. They have to come up with new ideas for me. But all of that makes you have to be brave.
Yeah.
Okay. So for businesses listening to this, do not underestimate the power of bravery and courage for you in, leading a company or influencing those around you in a company and your people. Because what happens when you see me being brave? It rubs off, right? And humans are contagious. So you hang out with me too long, Chris, you'll be brave, courageous and full of energy.
Sounds good to me. So just tell us when sort of your transformation started then, Breda, and do you feel it's still a work in progress? Like a lot of people say, like when you go through something like this, or if you are somebody who's always thinking that way, that it's never ending, you're just constantly wanting to grow and that type of thing. So take us back to when that started. Was it, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Or 5 years ago? And then tell us kind of how that is now for you at this stage.
Yeah. Well, first of all, everybody's life should be an evolution of growth. And if you're listening to this and it doesn't feel like that, well, then you get to start to work on this stuff rapidly, because you don't know when life's going to be over for you either. So you can't wait until something is perfect to start this stuff. You've got to start it right now with what you have and where you are, which is an important line for people to pick up on, because they always say to me, oh, I'll start this when. I'm like, no, wrong. You need to start wherever you are at that time and with whatever you have. That's the perfect place to start. So why my transformation kicked off was because I wanted to change my life. I knew that I had more potential to give. I knew I could have more fuel in businesses and across industry. And I just knew I'd have to find a way of doing that. Vision boards was step one. And again, if you don't have a clear vision, then I'm not sure you know where you're going. And after that, what you need to do is you need to be brave. You need to share what it is you're thinking and your vision. So if people don't know your vision and what it is you're passionate about, how are they going to help you? And businesses do this really poorly. They don't advertise their human vibes, right? So I see a lot of marketing. I'm like, nobody wants to be sold to. So we've got to get businesses starting to share what it feels like inside in their company. The bit of fun that they have around a coffee break, a bit of a laugh with some of the lunches. That kind of thing is what people relate to. All right. And so the bravery bit for me is you have to start putting yourself out there a lot. I just see a lot of people go on LinkedIn, make a video, just pop it up. And that freaks people out altogether. But I've watched businesses where their CEO has done that and has built a massive, massive profile for themselves, built massive networks around them. And that's how their company has grown. Right. Now, that is not hard. But it just for the humans who are afraid of change and afraid of failing, it's where they get stuck.
Yeah.
So when I'm working with companies, I do their videos, I put them up, I push them just to show them how it can be done. You can do it easy, you can do it simple. Or you can do it the really complicated way and make it hard for yourself. But just get started one way or another.
So you've spoken on some of the biggest stages. What does leadership mean to you in 2025 for you? Everything
for me. So my legacy in the world will be to influence people around their leadership. And the reason that I think leadership is so powerful is because I see leadership as an honour. So if we've people listening today and they are in a position of influence, then I want them to realize that you don't have to do it. You get to do it. And that's a big distinction, right? I want that kind of mindset out there. I want people realizing that if you are leading or influencing people, it means that you are impacting the way they go home in the evening, right? And everybody knows that when they go home to their family or friends, how was your day? Oh, it was terrible. Do you want them to say you are horrific to deal with every day, or do you want to make people's lives better? Because if you do that, if you make people's lives better, you get more dopamine and oxytocin and all of the good brain chemicals that you need, and so do they. So it's a win-win for me. So I would love more companies to invest more into leadership training, especially in the emotional intelligence space.
What's something people misunderstand about public speaking or having confidence to speak out?
So I teach people this all the time. And there's a little nugget or two that I can give everyone today to listen in, because people think that having to do like a video on LinkedIn is horrific, or having to stand on a stage is horrific or whatever. It's really, really not, because there's no difference in me sitting talking to you now and me sitting talking to a room of people. Zero difference to me. It makes no difference. So people say, do not get nervous. Not one bit. I get excited. And the reason I get excited is because I am all about delivering a message. So when I'm teaching people how to do public speaking, what I'll do with them is I'll talk to them about focusing not on themselves, but only on the message. So what message do you want to land with these people? And therefore, what impact do you want to have on these people? And that is all you focus on. Now, here's a line for everyone. Write this stuff down, folks, if you're listening. You are just the vessel by which the message flows. I give that everybody again. You are just the vessel by which the message flows. And that means that it's nothing to do with you on the stage. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you sound like. And being from Monaghan, everybody was like, oh my God, I thought my accent and my voice was horrific. And actually, everyone loves it, as it happens. So don't assume all of these negative things about yourself at all. Get that out of the mix. And all you have to focus on is message. What am I trying to deliver to these people? What impact do I want to have on them? How do I want to make them feel? Because when we make people feel excited, they've got hope and they're energized about what it is they're doing in their company or their organization or in their industry or in their BITA network, then that drives action, right? Because when you study humans, what you learn is that we think, we feel, and then we act. So if I want to bring us all back, if we want to act in a way that gets us all the best results, that allows us to be brilliant in the world and to contribute in the world in a massive way, well, then we've got to have the right emotion going. And so your emotion will have to be full of hope, excitement, adrenaline. And then that's driven by your thoughts. So I need people to be thinking big for me. Creative, fearless thoughts, brave, bold, and taking on the world.
And how do you prepare mentally and emotionally for talks that are going to, deep, are going to be kind of deep, emotional, felt topics?
I think before I go on a stage to do stuff like that, it's often about, again, it's about how do I want to make these people feel when they leave here today? Do I want them to be on a high, or do I want them thinking, quite strategically? What way do I want them thinking? And so I design everything I'm doing to that outcome. I'd love people to start thinking about becoming more outcomes focused.
Yeah.
In everything they do. So from you get up in the morning to make your first call, be thinking about being outcomes focused, because most people listening to this are likely to relate to being dragged off into the weeds. They get stuck in all of this small detail. They're problem solving. They're putting out fires all over the place. And in fact, if we could just get everyone focused on outcomes, then the how would change, right? Because your how has to get more defined and it has to get leaner. So how you do things has to get leaner. It has to get more agile. It has to get slicker and more efficient if you're going to hit your outcomes.
Yeah. So talking a bit about mindset.
Yeah.
Tell us what your non-negotiables would be now.
What I love to find in the world is growth mindsets. Now, people listening, what you need to be learning from this is to be able to identify your own mindset at any one time in your day, because it could change. So if you're practicing a growth mindset right now, what you'll be doing is you'll be thinking about the art of the possible. Those 3 words, write them on a post-it. What is the art of the possible? Now, this has started to dabble into innovation as well, because I love people that can do a bit of innovative thinking for me, because we need them more creative. You want to be innovative, you want to be cutting edge in your industry, you get it. You've got to be innovating. And to do that, you've got to understand how to do growth mindsets. You've got to understand how to get people collaborating, and how to drive that energy and the thought process that we talked about as well. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, so I'm growth mindset. It's great that you're giving tips as well. I'm really keen to find out what your non-negotiables are, like what habits or things do you do to keep yourself grounded?
All right, okay. So I would always assess myself. So I'm ongoing assessing myself. I used to be an auditor many years ago in banks. Can you believe that? But one of the things that I do a lot myself would be, I kind of test my thinking all the time, because now I know that your thinking's driving your energy. Your energy drives what you say and do, and that's what's driving your results. So I audit my thinking all of the time. This is when I'm starting to talk to people about becoming a conscious thinker. Right? So a conscious thinker is someone who is aware of the quality of the thoughts they're running at any one time. So you assess the quality of the thoughts. Now, here's how you test this. First test on it is this thought serving me and those around me? So let's imagine I'm, in one of the board meetings with some of the companies, large companies that could be listening to this, or small companies, and we're thinking about something that we can or cannot do. Is that thought serving me and those around me? Is that going to bring us growth, in other words? Or is it a bit of a negative one? Is it one that I'm finding reasons not to do things because, of this excuse or the other excuse or the other reason that I think is valid? Right? So that's how you test that. And then the other one is, could there be a healthier version of this thought in the world? So I love Richard Branson. I love Barack Obama. I follow a lot of leaders around the world. And I would always say to myself, would they be thinking this way? And if not, what way would they be thinking in the situation I might be in right now?
Anything else other than kind of monitoring your thoughts? Any other practices?
Observe people around you in the world that are doing brilliant things, because success is repeatable. So I have a lot of companies. I work a lot with CEOs and then come into their companies and run leadership programs. I come to their town halls. I do their conferences and stuff like that. And so I always say to them, you're not starting from scratch here. You know what I mean? There's a whole lot of different types of industries that have done things that you don't even know you want to do yet. But get watching these people, learn from them, listen to it. Let them inspire your thinking around what your company could do. Sometimes it's the small things that will help a company innovate. It's the small things sometimes that will inject energy into a culture, right? And that stuff is not terribly hard to do because it's been done already. We don't have to copy exactly what other companies do. We could look at what they do and we could think, how could we do that in our way? Our version of that would look like what? And the other question I want companies to be thinking about is, so when they're trying to, work with this kind of thought process, a growth mindset, assess their conscious thinking, run all the tests that I just gave you, to assess your thinking. Also ask yourself the question, what are we not doing yet? Because that's what people forget. So they say to me, oh yeah, well, we've tried that and we tried this and I'm like, talk to me about what we haven't tried yet. Where have we not gone yet? If you want to be innovative, then you can't be doing this same stuff. That's not innovation. You can do incremental improvement, absolutely, on your business as usual processes. Absolutely. And you should be doing that to get it more lean, running slicker, right? And less end user frustration with processes in a company. But you should also be asking yourself, what are we not doing yet? What have we not tried yet? And then ask your people that.
What do you do when fear or doubt shows up?
You slap it. I teach people about, in your mind, when fear shows up or negative thinking, what you need to do for me is imagine your inbox bin. So everybody can think of that one fairly easy for me, because your brain thinks in pictures and words, right? So if we have a wee inbox bin there and you have a negative thought, or you have a limiting thought, or I couldn't do this, or that won't work for me, or that's not really for me, whatever it is you're talking yourself out of, I want that negative thought into that inbox bin. I want that lid firmly on. That is not allowed in there, because if you do not manage the nature of the thoughts that run through your brain, then you're in trouble. right? Because your brain has primitive wiring in it from the 3 million years ago that we were in a cave. And so you're wired for fear. Plus you've been conditioned for fear as you grew up. So now you have to master that stuff or it will master you. So any of the negative thinking, any of the limited thinking, any of the excuses that we tell ourselves, I want us to test them. And then I want to stick them into that bin. And then what you're going to do for me is you're going to replace that negative limited thinking with the extreme opposite, which is the real positive stuff. So let's say I am trying to get a CEO to go on video, for example, or something to that effect. And they're going, oh, well, I don't think that would suit me and I don't think it would be for me. Because these are the kind of things people tell me. And I'm like, wrong. And then the phone is up and they're on a video with me like that. Right. And so once, you can get help. You can get people like me around you to support you, push you, give you a shove here and there, because sometimes that's what we need. And then the other bit is you got to get into the positive programming. There's nobody can teach your mind how to do positive thinking except you.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you say to people that are maybe comfortable the way they are, they're maybe coasting and not evolving as much as they could be?
I would say they're not living life to the max. And that's the biggest problem with that. So sometimes you'll find in life you have to lean out. And I get that. And so that's where we kind of go a little bit easier on ourselves. If we're heading for burnout or we've pushed ourselves for a long time. So you need to recognize the signals in yourself. But you also need to know that, you can do anything you put your mind to. That's the really important stuff here. If you're not mastering your fear, then it'll master you. So the only way to get us into a space where we are doing the brave, bold, courageous things that I want us to be doing is managing mindset, driving it in the right direction.
And tell us about some of the books that you've been reading or some of the studying that you've done to get yourself to where you are today. Who are your most favourite authors?
Yeah, easy.
And, leaders in this field.
Yeah, I'd love it. So Tony Robbins was the first sort of thought leader that I would have listened to. And I remember driving up the motorway one day. I was working in the bank and it was a long drive and I was really struggling with my personal life at the time. And I put on a YouTube where I found that it was under positive mental attitude. I didn't know none of this stuff, right? And so listen to that. And I ended up crying the whole way to work that day because the amount of aha moments and the amount of light bulbs that hit me on that journey were immense. And that tells you that when you get the right knowledge, everything changes.
Can you remember any of those light bulb moments?
Oh, loads. It was all about self-talk. It was about conditioned thinking. It was about the way we were reared. It was about our self-belief suite. Oh, loads of stuff. And it was the first time I'd heard it in such a way that it made sense to exactly the situation I was in. And that's the day I decided, you know what? He's just changed my life. So I'm going to do that now for everyone. I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm going to study this stuff until I have this mastered. And I have left no stone unturned. And then I'm going to start teaching everybody else.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Marissa Peers is a great woman. I always recommend people to listen to. She's an occupational therapist in London. She's worked with people all over the world. She's a total nerd with mindset stuff. So if you have not looked up Marissa Peers, please go and find her. She's a London woman and she's amazing. I just like her thought process because she keeps things simple. And often I think psychology and the mindset stuff can get difficult and it gets complicated, which again pushes people away because they don't understand it. They think they can't get it. You can get it if you've the right people to teach you. It's easy.
Okay. Fascinating stuff. Love your story so far. Tell us a little bit about BITA.
Yeah.
So what drew you to the BITA community?
Well, would you believe, Chris, I was coaching a man for a while. A couple of years, and he kept saying to me, I'm in this thing and this thing's called BITA and you really need to talk to them. And so I didn't know much about BITA. I'd looked it up and I said to him, I like the sound of this, collaborating in business and networking. And I love networking because for me, and this is an important word for people who don't like networking, I think networking is just making new friends. Because it is, right? You get to know new people. You get to understand how they think. Like, what's not to like? So I think people traditionally don't like networking because they think they have to go and be someone they're not. You don't. As you know, for me, I'm not like that anymore. I've done away with all of that persona stuff. I'm vulnerable everywhere I go. Not that I'm vulnerable, but I don't care what people think of me anymore. So I can be my authentic self. And for me, networking is pure fun. I love it. So I'd love to get people into that headspace. But anyway, so this man recommended me to go meet BITA. I went to the Intercontinental Hotel in Dublin at Christmas. They were having a Christmas lunch. I was late because I couldn't even go. My schedule was mental. Pulled in the car park. The man was away and I had to go in and find Paul Whitnell. Didn't even know who Paul Whitnell was. So I went in, found my LinkedIn. I was like, I'm going to find this fella because he seems to be onto a good thing. He's got companies collaborating. He's all over the world. This is my kind of adrenaline. And I went in and I found him, and me and him and Billy, that is the chair of Dublin, just hit it off. I said to them, you've marketing out there and there's no pictures of you yet on LinkedIn. And I've been looking and I said, right, out just come with me now. So all of a sudden, the pair of eyes, big, tall men, either side of me, they didn't know me from Adam. And we were taking our marketing shots. So we just hit it off. And those boys reminded me of those army officers that I had years ago in my life who mentored me, who, seen potential in me, who invested coaching in me. And that is what they're doing for each other in BITA, which is what I love. So I met them, got chatting to them properly. We talked about the board. We talked about all of the stuff. And then they suggested I go on the board because of my background, transforming companies, driving things. I'm into branding and marketing for companies. I'm helping companies with strategy, vision, stuff like that. So ended up joining the Dublin board. And I've done a lot of networking in that space, trying to get the Dublin board. They're doing evening socials now. Billy's brilliant at running all of that, and it's really good fun. So if anybody's listening and you're in the Dublin area, or you're not, and you could be, then the third Thursday of every month is when we meet in the Lansdowne Hotel in Dublin. So come along. You don't need to know anyone. You can come on your own. We'll mind you and we'll take care of you. So just come along. Just remember, third Thursday of the month. And then we do the BITA networking mornings every Friday morning, which is a hoot. I have got to know so many new businesses there, and that's all online. So anybody can do that. It's 8 a.m. every Friday morning. We use a platform called Remo. You can get the link from the website. So go into bita.ie. You'll find it there. And you will meet companies from England, Ireland, all over the British Isles. You'll meet them from sometimes Dubai, France, Scotland, and you start to get to know these people. And that has become a social event in my week.
What would you say makes BITA stand out then from other networking groups?
So I think certainly the culture in BITA is exceptional. And as we talked earlier, the values in it are exactly what I love. So it's about being authentic. You don't have to be what you're not. You can talk to people about what kind of business plans and business growth and business vision you've got. They'll help you for just no reason because they're in the same network. And it's just that power of collaboration is just immense. Plus, there's a lot of fun in it. So we keep it fun. It's not a very formal type meeting anytime. It's always informal. People feel very relaxed. They bring their friends. It's that kind of, it's a tribe. And I was thinking to myself coming down the road to today, one of the primitive human needs is to feel like you belong. And I think BITA nails that for me because it feels like a tribe. It feels like something I belong to. And certainly a brand that I associate massively because my values aligns with the BITA values. And that stuff's seriously important in business. Now we're going to start working on building the global forum. So there's a guy called Ignatius in the Isle of Man. Shout out to him. He's class. He's an absolute whiz kid when it comes to AI and everything innovation, and he works globally. He's a legend. And he is chairing the global forum. So I'm going to help him just pad that out a little bit. And we're going to have all of our footprint all over the world represented on the global forum. And we're going to concentrate on some of the key pieces there, such as sustainability, innovation, trading, all of that stuff that's important to businesses who are trading across the world. And we're going to have lots of fun. And we're going to connect people all over the world. And there's going to be massive collaboration there. So that's just kicking off this year. And Paul has now given me the title of Global Growth Ambassador. So very happy to help people collaborate right across the world, get them to know each other a bit more so that they start to realise where they can trade and where there are services that, you can do for me and I can do for you, and make sure that we get brilliant service from each other because that's what it's all about too. It's quality.
Yeah. So maybe we trip over to Dubai then?
I think so, Chris. Actually, shout out to Dubai because they are doing great work. I've been following them tight on their socials and by God are they on it. They're brilliant. Well done, Dubai.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Irish business landscape. If you had a magic wand, what would you change about Irish business overnight?
I think what they could do with is a bit more efficiency. So there'd be two things I would do with the Irish landscape right now. It would be help people get trained up on AI more. And some of our guys do that, like Iggy does it, Scott Bewley does it. So there's a lot of knowledge and education within the BITA world and family at the moment around that AI piece, because people are afraid of AI. AI is just going to make your life a bit easier, and it can fit in to different processes in a business that just takes a bit of pain away. Now, I think that is a wise move and a wise direction to go in. You'll never do away with the ability and the need for human judgment, because humans will always need to make the decisions, right? And that'll be based on gut and instinct and emotions and stuff like that. But your AI will really, really support you. The other thing I would love to do is really instill different mindsets right into the Irish business landscape, because I don't think we are at our potential at all. And actually, the level of employee engagement is really low across the entire world, but it's not great in Ireland either. It's really bad. I was making a video the other day. I think it's like 15% of people are engaged. So if you're running a company, you've got 15% of your people engaged. That's because they need to be led by leaders who inspire the socks of them. And that's what people expect these days. And so if your leaders are not in that space yet, get them into it. And that's mindset, it's emotional intelligence and leadership, but also the ambition stuff. I don't understand why we are not as ambitious as we should be. So many companies are keeping themselves quite limited in what they do. They see new markets, but they're unsure. It's back to that fear of uncertainty and fear of failure, fear of judgment. What will they say if I don't get this to work? I say try it. You know what? Get out of those comfort zones. Get on the edge of the cliff and try new things as a company. Get your people with you. Get them innovating with you. And that's how you do this stuff.
What are you most excited about at the minute going forward?
Everything.
Both professionally and then personally. What have you got coming up?
So I am writing a book, which really excites me because it's getting a chance to put down on paper all of the lessons. So I'm building it in a modular fashion. It'll be like a half storybook, half workshop book, workbook modules in it, because I want people to learn very quickly from me what I've had to learn the long, hard way. So that really inspires me. I have written a chapter in a book called the Lioness series, which is an anthology. And that was published, would you believe, by a woman in Australia who's from Monaghan. And she's a massive publisher. Karen Weaver is her name. If you don't know Karen Weaver, look her up. She's fabulous. And so we are going to launch that in New York in November in Times Square. And we are going to have a masquerade ball in Gotham Hall, Chris. So that's ever so slightly exciting. And then I was in London there in April because I managed to win the Woman of the Year awards for corporate and public sector across the world, which is fairly exciting as well. So personally, what am I excited about? I'm excited about doing more talks, inspiring more people, because this is not just what I do work-wise. This is what I do everywhere. People laugh at me. When I get into an elevator with someone, they get out different. And that is not a joke. If, my kids' friends come over to my house, they get coached. So it's a way of life. It's a lifestyle for me, and it's a job, and it's something that is part of my legacy and my mission in the world.
So final question. If people hear the name Breda McCague in 10 years' time, what are they going to be talking about?
First of all, I want them to smile. I want them to remember me and the impact I'm having on people as something happy, as something positive. So I want that kind of energy to be my brand, which I think I'm doing okay at. What are they going to remember me for? I think it's going to be that I'm a total nerd when you get to know me about mindset. I'm very extroverted and very bubbly. I bring people along. I open doors for people. I make people feel comfortable. I help them get out of their comfort zone. But behind it all, I'm a total nerd then. So when people get past she's very friendly and she's very welcoming and, she's making me feel part of this thing, then they start to dive into this nerdiness in me. And that is where I can transform lives, because it's really the knowledge that transforms lives. They say knowledge is power. They're not wrong.
And tell us a little bit about Aiming for Awesome as well, just finally.
I named my company Aiming for Awesome because my home is me and my 3 sons. So I'm a single mum, and I set that company up in 2022. And I decided, you know what? This is the way I go forward. And the reason I call it aiming for awesome is because people don't realize if they're not aiming for awesome, then probably what's happening is they're coasting. And if you want to aim for average, you're going to hit that very easily and less, right? So aiming is very important. So where are you aiming at the moment? What is it you're going for? Are you going for global scale? Are you trying to hit the moon or not? You know, are you just trying to do what everyone else is doing around you? That's no good, because that's what I'd call average. You might be doing average well, that's fine. But why would you not want to push and see what you actually are capable of? So aiming for awesome is where I'm delivering leadership programs to companies. So I go in to get to know a company. I'll consult with them a little bit. I'll work out what events they have coming up, what kind of structure they're trying to do in terms of their training, their learning and development. What kind of angle are they going at with that? Where are their pain points? And then I'll build a solution for them. So I'll come in, do their town hall perhaps, run hackathons, get their brains going, get the brains opened, get people working together that don't know each other, you know, break down silos, pull people together, make them collaborate while they're having fun with me, because I do all sorts of things, Chris. I've been known to do the odd air guitar competition on stage. I make them do high five races where we raise dopamine right across our audience. I do things like Mexican waves where we do a bit of branding for our company. So I'm trying to teach people as I go and as they're with me to get out of those comfort zones. And then I'll come in and I'll go into the hardcore learning and development with them and teach them and workshop them out and make them work together and role play them to make sure that they understand how to motivate each other.
And how can people get in touch with you, or, you know, maybe book a call with you?
Easy. So I have a website, BredaMcCague.com. Go in there and just go into the contact tab after you've checked it out, of course. And then just drop me a mail that way. Or you can drop me a DM on LinkedIn, because I kind of half live on it. And I love it, because that's where I meet cool people like you, Chris. That's where I meet loads of people around the world that I have managed to collaborate with who are absolute inspiration. And that is something that we need to be thinking about. Whoever's listening to this, you don't need to have those people physically around you. Reach out online and find people that inspire you. Find the right people. Just reach out to them online. You can build online relationships that then turn into the real thing.
Well, Breda, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Good.